Hi folks, I've got the headphones on today because we're going to be talking about Reaper plugins and how to set up your microphone to get the most out of it. That said, it's kind of a mouthful. Let's get into it. Hi, and welcome to the channel here on YouTube. We do take a look at everything we can when it comes to visual or audio aids to enhance your stream and make it sound and look the best it possibly can. I am your stream champ, the Argument Monk. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're following here on the side of YouTube so you can keep you up to date with any new content that comes out. Hit subscribe, hit bell, hit like. It helps me out a lot. And also make sure you're swinging by on my Twitch as well. I stream quite often, and when I go live, you're always welcome to come by, say hi, ask questions, or even game with me. It's actually kind of a fun environment. That said, today we're going to be talking about Reaper plugins. It's a little bit of an older topic, but I still wanted to cover it. I still get asked quite often how I set up my microphone and what works for me. And just like anything when it comes to streaming, there's no one answer that will kind of like solve any particular situation. You got to see what works for you, and that might not be the same for anybody else because of background environments or different hardware, things like that. I think it's important also to take note that I'm using a Rode Podcaster, and I'm not affiliated with them or sponsored with them or anything like that. It's just a microphone that I've used for a long time. I've gravitated towards it. It works for me. It's not the best sounding microphone, but I think it's great. It's user friendly. And for being a USB microphone, I think it works quite well for what you get out of it. That's right. It's a USB microphone. It's not an XLR. There are advantages and disadvantages between both USB and XLR, and that's kind of a whole nother topic and debate as itself. Maybe I'll make another video of that if I have an XLR to compare it to. But I've had this set up for a long time, and it works out pretty well. So let me show you kind of how I set mine up. And maybe you want to mimic this. At the very least, what we're really trying to hit and hit today is taking out that background noise. For me, I have some pretty heavy fan noise, and it really irritates me when I hear my own fan noise. So that's one thing that this will help us do and eliminate that, or at least minimize that when it comes to stream. Let's go take a look at our stream setup, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, so the very first thing you're going to need is the Reaper plugins itself. It's here on this website. Reaper is a really great set of software beyond just OBS Studio. There's quite a few things and resources that it comes to the plate. This package will have quite a few things in it that when you download it, you'll get access to. We're only really going to be talking about a couple of them, but you can really experiment with your own sound and making sure it kind of sounds the way you'd want it to sound with a lot of the tools that come in. And as far as OBS plugins go, this is pretty free. So what you want to do is coming down here, download the 32 or the 64-bit version. I'm not going to download it, install it. I already have it downloaded and installed. But download what bit you need for your system. Go ahead and run the installation. And once you've done running the installation, you should see, it won't show up in your tools here, but if you go into any audio source, and I'll just go into my microphone and I'll hit filters. If you do a new filter, you can see the VST2X plugin down at the very, very bottom. If you see that plugin being shown up on your audio devices or your audio sources, then you know your plugin's installed. And I already didn't name my plugins very well, but I'm going to turn a lot of them off so you can kind of hear what it sounds like in the background for me. This is like my raw voice. I'm super embarrassed. It's like I'm naked without makeup on or anything like that. And for me, I have some background noise, and you probably can hear it coming through. It's subtle, but it's there. So that's one thing that I do want to eliminate, and I'll show you how. Now, a couple of recommendations that I have for you is I drop my microphone in my sources. You can actually have, if you go underneath File Settings, it takes a second here. Underneath Audio, you can list a bunch of default devices, including your microphone and your auxiliary. I have it set to default. I have a lot of these other ones disabled. And that's because I don't want my microphone on every single scene. I really only want my microphone on scenes that make sense. So, for example, if you have a B-rack back scene, I'm going to actually have my microphone not visible on that scene at all. And that's just because if I go up and go to the bathroom, I would like to just not even have that chance that somebody could hear me or something like that. So I drop my microphone in per scene. So my Rode microphone is actually showing up here as a source. That's one reason why it's there. Excuse me. And then one thing is you can do is you can go underneath advanced audio properties just by going to your mixer, right clicking advanced audio properties. And then everything that's in here, if you want to listen to it, you can do so. Like this microphone, my main mic, I'm going to switch to monitor and output, and you can actually hear yourself. That's a little weird. I have to admit. If you're not used to hearing yourself, it's something that you don't necessarily have to get used to, but at least when testing and setting up your audio, it's pretty good to at least know what you're putting out. The other option you can do is do a recording, listen to your voice, hear the playback, and adjust as you need, or you can use this to adjust on the fly. I'm just going to turn it off. So monitor off for me. That way it doesn't get too ringy in my ears, because otherwise I won't be able to think and talk at the same time. So anyways, we got their filters all turned off. Now, if you don't know how filters work in OBS Studio, this works for visual filters as well. Filters get resolved top to bottom. So for me, the very first thing I want to do is get rid of this fan noise. So I'm going to add a new plugin, and you can label it whatever you want, but we want to use these VS2 VS2X plugins, and I'm going to say something like background suppress or something, so I kind of know what it is. And now you get this choice, this drop-down menu of what you want a plugin. And these are all the extra tools that were available on the website, all the different ones. They have an equalizer, they have a delay, they have a gate, but really it's that REAFIR underscore standalone is the big tool of this set. So let's go ahead and hit that, and then highlight that and hit open interface. And now you can see this nice little wave of sound coming in. And the trick here is to eliminate the background sounds. If I say nothing at all, you'll still see some of those lines coming up. And that's what we have background noise. They all have their own frequency and range. And if we can take that out of the equation, we're going to be one step closer to what we need to achieve. So what we can do is we can, underneath mode here, if you go down to, there's an EQ, a gate, a suppressor, a conlove LR, but really this is subtract. And what that's do is going to take out those waves and then filter them and push the rest of the waves forward, if that makes sense. So highlight. And it's important to note that whatever is happening in your ambiance at that time is going to get captured. So sometimes, and this happened to me as well, where I moved my setup slightly, those fan noises echo differently and hit the mic differently. It's really good practice to do this either before each stream or once a week, or at least when you move your desk, because these noises can change based on your environment and your audio levels. And so if they are not present or they change, it can affect the sound of your sound. So as that's being subtracted, you get this little red line here, and those frequencies get pulled out, and then the rest of the things get pushed forward. And that's really all we need right now. We're going to keep it on subtract. You can mess with these modes, the FFT size, the precise, if you want to get a little bit of a different amount, I guess, if that makes sense. And that's all I really want out of this one, so I'm going to close out. Then the next step I usually do is do kind of a gate. So I'll hit plus, and I'm going to go to the VS2 again. I'm going to call this the gate. I'll hit OK. I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to look for the REA Gate. There's one right there. And I'll open that guy right there. And now what you pretty much have is you have a little bit of a pre-open, attack, release, release. I don't really mess with too many of these. I like a lot of the default settings, but what a gate does is allow certain audios that are really, really quiet to the microphone to close and then completely eliminating that microphone as it's too quiet to trigger. So only a certain level of decibel will trigger the actual microphone, and then it will kick through the rest of that microphone. And that's what's appearing on the side here to the left. So what I usually do is I kind of shut myself up. Maybe I'll do a little bit of keyboard pressing, just to kind of get a little bit of idea of what the level of volume is beyond my own voice. And that's what I want to gate off with this slider. So I really have it pretty low. It's like at minus 67. Again, a lot of my sounds I want to have pushed forward, but possibly those fan noises, possibly those keyboard presses, that's the kind of stuff that you want to make sure that the gate is closed. That way it's not always just opening up and having just straight audio going through, if that makes sense. Playing around with these attack and release, basically there's a certain amount of processing and post-processing. I really don't change them around, but if you find that you have long drawn out vowels and such, you can take a look at your attack and release and kind of play around with those so the gate closes quicker or opens quicker, if that based on those longer vowels and drawn out sounds, if that makes sense. All right, so mostly that's kind of what I use on there. Sometimes I'll pull it an equalizer. I find that whenever my S's come across, I don't like the sound of my S. I feel like it's annoying on stream. I feel like it's nails on the chalkboard. And so usually what I'll do is I'll use an equalizer to take out those S sounds. And so let's go ahead and set up an equalizer. I'm going to go ahead and hit plus for a new one. We're going to do another VST plugin. I'll call this EQ for equalizer. I'll open the plugin interface. Oh, gotta pick which one first. So there is a real EQ standalone. I'll highlight that and then open it. So what we have here is basically a straight equalizer. The lower frequencies are deeper, the higher frequencies are higher tone, and it's set with a 4-band. Now, my S range, this is what I was kind of talking about, is usually in the higher range. You can add extra bands if you really like to by right-clicking on the screen and adding a new band. And this will let you have a little bit more manipulation in that frequency range. Kind of depends on how much manipulation you want to do with your equalizer. A lot of the times, I like to bring my bass up a little bit. My bass tones, so I sound a little bit more bold. And I usually try to take down my S's a little bit. And this is one thing that you're really going to want to listen to your playback and listen to it a couple of times before you go live, because this can probably be the biggest play, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to hiss for a little while, pardon me. And you can see my S's are right around the 6,000 range, right around here where that 4 is. And I'm going to add a new band here and another new band here. And I'm going to just kind of lower that one down a little bit. So whenever I hiss, it's a little bit more suppressed. Yeah. There we go. So hopefully that will help that out a little bit. I'm not actually listening to it right now. I could spend hours talking about equalizers and how good or bad they can be. And it kind of depends on your individual voice and how you want your voice to sound. Hopefully it sounds decent. I'm not actually listening to it right now. Not a good idea. Listen to it before you go live, but that's what we're going to do for the recording. And lastly, the last thing I usually do is I usually add a little bit of a gain or a compressor to it. I'm not going to really add a compressor because I've been trying to talk a little bit louder lately as it is. But I do like to add a gain, and that's just because I like to have my voice trump the rest of my stream a little bit. And so I usually use about a 3 decibel gain. And again, it's going to change based on your hardware and your setup, but that's usually my setup for it. And when you see your gain, I personally like to see my microphone just kind of peaking right in the mid reds, but you never want to make your microphone peak all the way to the top. If you're peaking all the way to the top, then you might want to bring a suppressor or bring that volume control down a little bit, because you want to prevent your microphone from peaking out, and that's where you get those pops and those jagged sounds coming from. I do like to have my microphone loud so it speaks over my gameplay or over the background music or whatever it is that you've got going on. You want your microphone to be the most forward, and that's when these sliders and the mixers will come in handy. So last thing you want to do is probably check your audio levels, either by right-clicking down here and monitoring your microphone. Monitoring it, check. Not too bad. Or doing a little bit of recording, and then up here where you do a show recordings, you can actually stop and listen and watch your stream, so you can kind of hear and see what you're putting out there pre-stream, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of how I go through my audio setup, and I think it works out pretty well for me. Hopefully that helps yourselves out and on your own streams. I'm probably going to call it there for today's video. I'll see you in the next one. Be safe out there, home glitches, and I'll see you next time. Do I look at him?
Jim, we need you up here.
On my way.
Looks like we're too late, boss.
See where his hand is? At least he went out doing what he loves. Whoa, hey, dude.
You take a look around.
You don't sneak up on a brother like that.